The Event Industry News podcast is sponsored by Present Communications. Present provides broadcast quality live, hybrid, and virtual event production trusted by organizations where reliability really matters. From corporate town halls and conferences to high profile live streams, they design and deliver fully resilient systems that work first time. Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dickson. Wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune into today's podcast from. And we're going to be talking all things payment and payment technologies today with a guest who's from a company who knows all about this sort of thing, having deployed what appears to be in my pre-podcast production notes, significant success and significant development in the infrastructure of payment technologies that are used at events. I'm delighted to say that joining the podcast for the first time as a guest is Jess Gould. Jess is from Weezevent. Jess, a very good afternoon to you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so as I said, we're going to be talking about sort of payment technologies, cashless payments. That's, I think, all the sort of stuff that you guys do. But before we get into it, tell us a little bit about yourself first of all, and who and what Weezevent are, and what you guys do within the industry.
So I have a background in event operations. So for 15 years have worked alongside festival organisers, event founders to find their operational gaps and generally fill them with a technological solution. The last 5 years I've worked for Weezevent. They do ticketing, accreditation, access control, and on-site payment systems. So they really do all of the technology that you might use on site for an operational deployment. In the UK, we've been around for about 6-ish years, generally doing more on-site payment systems and access control, although ticketing is now becoming more and more of what we do as well.
Excellent. And I guess my first instinct as a response to what you just said there is that it makes sense for all of those elements to be delivered by one provider because of the natural synergy, I guess, that they all have. You know, we all have the tickets now on our phones anyway. We use our phones to make payments. You know, we're interacting, and the devices that we carry in our pocket are so transactional now for any number of reasons. It makes sense, I guess, off the bat to say that having one company doing all those things for a festival would ultimately provide some big operational benefits.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just operational, it's also we see commercial benefits too. So more and more we're seeing event organisers utilising data sets from all kinds of areas, pulling them together to really understand the customer journey. So to have Weezevent be able to do all of those things, it just joins up all of those dots nicely rather than having to sort of work out the data and match it all up later. It's already done.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. One of the things we had some really sort of useful notes, and I always get talking points in advance of our podcast from our guests and things that we may be able to cover and chat about. And one of the things I noticed in the notes for today's podcast, Jess, was this development of closed loop cashless payment systems, and I for one had to look up what that actually meant as a term. What is closed loop? Now, as soon as I kind of read the definition of it and the explanation, I instantly thought, I've actually utilized that as a customer. I've been at events and in places where that's happened. But for those people who might not be aware or familiar with the term, explain to us what closed loop are and how that plays a part in your business at the moment.
So closed loop's probably been around, 10 years, but we see it more and more in like the large scale European festivals, more than we have done in the UK. And I think it's still sort of an emerging technology for majority of UK festivals. So it works by customers topping up, a wristband or a card or something, which is then functioning offline. It's a closed loop, so we don't need to contact a bank server. Everything is read and written onto that chip within the site of the event. It's obviously very beneficial in the UK, where we were on greenfield sites a lot of the time, and the internet does go down. We've had that very recently a large-scale event where the internet went for 24 hours. You know, if you're relying on card payments, that's a huge chunk of your revenue. But because we were totally offline, I don't think customers even noticed. They just carried on buying their drinks and food as normal. So yeah, that's the closed loop system. Basically, it's just a way of moving those payments offline to a secure.
Yeah. And I could be wildly wide of the mark here, but I'm going to give the I'm going to sort of reference the example where I think I've used this technology before and see if it is correct. It was on holiday a couple of years ago in Bulgaria, of all places, and we went to this amazing water park that had bars and restaurants and snack facilities and stuff there. And rather than having to keep going back to your locker to get cash or your card or your phone or something, when you arrived at the water park and you paid your entry, you got given a wristband that had a chip within the wristband. You could then top up credit effectively onto your account that corresponded to that wristband. So if you wanted to visit any of the bars or the snack bars, food concessions and things around the park, you could just tap that wristband and effectively it was deducted from the money that you'd loaded on in advance. And I thought, wow, this is absolutely fantastic. And then when I read the notes about today's podcast, I thought, I wonder if that's a similar kind of system to what you guys are doing at festivals.
Yeah, exactly the same. So because it's on your wrist, you don't have to take out your wallet, you don't have to worry about that. And because of that, we've seen theft substantially go down at the events that we've been working on. The difference with our system is you can top it up in advance. So using your ticket barcode number, you can put that into the website, top it up in advance. When you arrive, your ticket's scanned and paired with a wristband, so your money's automatically on your wrist. You don't even need to top up when you're on site, it's just done. So it's very seamless, very easy for the attendee, and obviously it's got live reporting for the organisers so they can see exactly what's been topped up, but also what's been spent.
One benefit that I see straight away is mobile phone battery charging on site. You know, people are on their phones all the time, and of course, when that is your means of payment as well, if that dies because you've been filming videos all day and on and off social media, you've no way of paying. So this, you know, it might seem like a sort of small insignificant problem to people. Oh, my phone's died. But when you take into account that people use it for payment, it's a huge benefit, isn't it, to not have to rely on your mobile device?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If I can ask as well, that a question that comes sort of to mind as well, I'm sure a lot of people are screaming at, is the security aspect. You know, that in terms of the actual bank data, how does that work in terms of keeping people's payments and things like that secure when they've topped up credit? Presumably this is there are levels of security built into that, but is there any actual bank information stored within the system?
No, it's just like a normal transaction if you paid for something online. So the system's quite separate. It's done by an external payment processor.
So by topping up in advance, effectively, you're creating that level of credit, I suppose, onto your account that then is utilized on site.
Exactly.
And so from a how are they deployed on site? How do they manifest themselves? Is it wristbands? Is it cards? Are there options available to organisers?
Yeah, exactly. It can be either. We generally use wristbands more. We use cards a lot for artist credit. So that's another benefit, I suppose, to using the system. When you're putting your artists or your crew into the accreditation platform, you can also put the meals that they're going to have, and that can also go onto their wristbands. But yeah, what you're pairing it to, it's usually a ticket paired to an NFC chip, and that NFC chip can be a wristband, a card, anything.
Interesting. So presumably this is eliminating a lot of the sort of the old-fashioned voucher systems. You know, when you think sort of backstage for crewing as well. You know, for crew meals. You know, I've worked on event sites before where you'll get given vouchers for the week, and you've got to hand those over, which require a lot of admin in terms of the physical printing and the prep of those vouchers. So there must be a lot of waste being eliminated with this process.
Yeah, it's not only the paper waste, but it's also the time-consuming, like the reconciliation at the end. Maybe some traders have lost some of their vouchers, but they obviously still want to be paid for them. And also really seeing who's spending what. This artist got this amount of vouchers, but they didn't really use them, or you can really sort of see where that money's going. And for big festivals, the crew meals is a huge amount of money. So to be able to actually track it properly is very nice.
No, absolutely. How does it work for the vendors? Your traditional sort of food vendors that are effectively paying for a pitch at a festival site to be there for the weekend. How are they set up with the necessary hardware?
So it's a long process in that we meet the traders quite early on. We get introduced to them. We give them access to the back office. They can put in the products themselves. They have control of their menu, of their prices, or the event organizer can do it if the organizer would like to keep control of the prices.
Yeah.
When they arrive to site, we train everybody that uses our devices, whether it's access control or traders. We do like hands-on training. We show them the device. We check through their menus with them, make sure that they're happy. And then, they take one of our devices. They usually keep it for the weekend, charge it up themselves. We give them a charger. And we're just on site really to support with any, low batteries, if we need to just run out and swap a battery over and stuff like that. I think it's quite good for a trader, to be honest, because, pitches are quite expensive. And if you're doing it on just a regular pitch fee, it can price out some of the smaller independent traders. Whereas with this system, because they're all using one system, so the organizer has real transparent view of what they're selling, they can do it on a revenue share. And I think that opens up the pitches to those smaller independents that may have been priced out before. If it's on a revenue share, that risk is kind of reduced for the trader.
You very briefly mentioned the word security and access control. And I've seen festival sites before where, after the headline act finishes and you're trying to usher several thousand people in one direction who are on day tickets and several thousand people in the opposite direction who are camping, and you're trying to identify their different colored wristbands in the dark. What benefits from a security and an access control point of view, and how does that integrate with access control?
Yeah, I mean, it's inherent. It's all part of the same thing. So rather than trying to look for the wristband in the dark, they tap against either a handheld device or a fixed terminal on the wall or on the fence. You tap in, it glows green, they can pass. So you can reduce actually the number of stewards. Rather than having one steward checking each lane, you can have maybe one terminal for each lane and one steward with eyes on 6 lanes at a time. So it reduces the number of staffing. It's also much easier just to tap your wrist on a thing rather than like pull up your sleeve, dig out your wristband. It's quite easy just to tap. It keeps the crowd flowing much quicker. But yeah, indeed, that type of access control, we see it a lot with, like we call it intrasite, but zones within a festival zone, VIP zones, camping zones, backstage zones. It's all written on the chip. And because it's written within the chip, it means you don't need to have so many different types of wristband. Everyone could just have the same wristband, and it's all just done on whatever's written inside of that. So it also saves waste and cost on getting additional wristbands printed.
And you've got to think as well of that time that it takes in security briefings and the issuing of pass sheets at festivals, where you've got a security or a steward trying to look at a pass sheet with a torch at 2 a.m. to see if somebody can come past with that wristband or not. So all of these factors, time is money, and if you've not got to have a as intense or long a briefing with all the security about different coloured wristbands, if it's as easy as that, that's saving time, isn't it? You could be saving hours on staffing costs because they're not having to arrive as early for those briefings.
Yeah, exactly.
How does the self-service ticketing technology, again, was a phrase that I saw on some notes before today's podcast, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Again, we're used to going on websites and buying tickets ourselves, so I thought, well, surely we're doing that already. What is the definition of self-service ticketing technology, and how does it manifest itself in your operations?
So self-service actually relates to the festival organizer or the event organizer. They can just join up to the platform, create their event, and start selling tickets. There's no setup needed from our side. It's self-service. So
Ah,
it's for the organizer to come in, set everything up. Often they do ask for an account manager to come and just check everything. But yeah, the amount of events that we have that are self-service that I only find out about because I'm attending it, or like I get a ticket through and I'm like, oh, it's from us. You know, so many organizers just log in and create their own events.
So by using a platform like Wheeze, or does that eliminate the need for another ticketing provider? And from a cost point of view, if that organizer is using it for, you know, closed loop cashless payments and all that other stuff as well, is this effectively reducing the need to go to some of those sort of other third party ticketing companies who take a cut of that?
Yeah, exactly. So Weezevent started out as a ticketing platform, and then it started Wheeze Access and Wheeze Pay. So yeah, it is a standalone ticketing platform. The good thing about Weezevent is that all of the data is actually owned by the organizer. And I think when we are approaching this age of AI coming into pulling all of our data sets together, it's really, really important to make sure that you do actually own your data as an event organizer. Yeah, it's one of the things that we're seeing a lot of at the moment is people are surprised when they don't. But yeah, indeed, it's just a ticketing platform. So it would be.
But also having it all in one place, not just owning the data, but having it in one place and not having to download spreadsheets or use API and, you know, integrations to get two different, a ticketing platform and a cashless payment platform provider to talk to each other. Presumably, if it's all in one place, even if they're using all three sort of elements of the system, everything can talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And it means that you've got access to some cool reporting that you didn't maybe have before when it was separate. So, for example, we can now do spend per head by ticket type by
Yeah,
arrival day. So we know now that, like, I don't know, some camper van people that arrive on a Friday are the biggest spenders. For
sure.
example, you can really like look at those data sets and understand your audience and your community a little bit more. Yeah, that's quite cool.
I guess as well, just to see, you know, if you really wanted to dive into it, see what people's sort of food and beverage trends are, you know, so that you can plan your bar operations better. If you know that, you know, we got absolutely hammered on this drink and we ran out of it, so next year we need to do this. And I guess just being able to look at those sort of the trends of what was purchased on site is going to be really good for future operations.
Yeah, and it's not even as far as next year. It would be in an hour or tomorrow. You know, it's live reporting where you can really see like that bar was busy last night. We need to send more stock over there. Or that trader run is really doing well. We need to get the waste management team over there now. Like it's live reporting that yes, you've got the historic data that you can use to really predict for the future, but you can also react very quickly to what's happening on the ground.
I can see people sort of looking at screens on site, like a bit like reading the Matrix, you know, so they can see certain, you know, certain sort of data streams sort of increasing and seeing trend lines go up and going, right, we need waste management over there because we can see that there's a spike in sales of, you know, pizzas, because we know that that's then going to generate boxes and so on and so forth. So that's an interesting one to look at because, you know, do you get AI within the platform to actually analyze some of that, or does it take people who really know and understand the platform to be able to read that sort of information and to be able to interpret what the data is saying to them?
It's really both, actually. We have event organisers that love data, that like to look at it themselves, and we've got live dashboards, which we customise depending on what they want to see. So if they're very interested in pizza sales, we would have a dashboard that's just for that. But we also do integrate with AI that sort of can do this predictions that we didn't have access to before. So yeah, both.
And do you recommend to organizers that they use, you know, AI platforms, or is that integrated within your own platform? Have you got some sort of AI that lives within Weezevent now?
There's not an internal AI at the moment. But we are working closely with another company that does pull together all the different data sets and has like a AI powered operating system.
Interesting. And when I referenced at the very start something like Boomtown, because I know that's an event that you've worked with. How have they deployed the cashless sort of the closed loop system now for? Is it 1 year, 2 years? How long have they been using that, and to what success?
I think we're in year 4, year 5.
Really?
Not sure. Yeah, it's been going for a little while, and it's been great. I think all round, like Boomtown, like any large greenfield event, is complex. You know, we've got the different areas within the site, different arrival days. So we've got weekend tickets plus Wednesday add-on tickets, a very large volunteer and crew contingent. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on with Boomtown, and they use every element of the system. They really do bring lots of complexity into it, which is great. It's one of the most fascinating projects to work on.
Sure.
So I'm trying to think what we do there. That's like the gate predictions. We can really see if there's going to be a spike in the queue, so we can send more scanning team. We have crew and artist credit on all of the wristbands through the accreditation platform, which feeds into it automatically. We have now started gamification, which was brought in last year. So this is points fixed around the festival. People can tap in using their wristband. It just takes a tap as you walk into a venue. All of that information is then fed into an AI-powered system, which post-event will generate a personalized video, a little bit like a Spotify Unwrapped, saying like you were here, you watched this band, and you know, it's really cool memento that you can give your audience that's completely unique to them.
Is there any social media integration? So has it reached a point yet where somebody could tap in and sort of pre-event in their portal or something, you know, link their social media account, so when they're on site and they tap into a particular stage or an area, it kind of, you know, posts on their social media or tags them that they're there? Has it reached that level of integration yet?
It totally could. I don't know anyone that's done it, but it's a great idea. Indeed, it could definitely happen.
Well, there you go. You heard it on this podcast. If Weezevent, I'm going to be getting my people to talk to your people about some sort of 1% cut of that. But no, I just think it's, you know, again, going back to this thing of we rely on our phones so much. And I've been there, you know, on weekend festivals, you know, you're carrying battery packs around, you know, you are on your phone a lot. People want to take videos, they want to share stuff. And I just think if there's opportunities to kind of share stuff without actually having to touch their device, you know, if you've already got some sort of integration happening there, you know, on the wristbands anyway, that, you know, there's other things that then, you know, presumably can be integrated. And sort of once the foundations are there of any technology, actually getting it to do other things that can sometimes be the simple part. It's having the foundations in place, I guess, with a lot of these platforms.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, technically it could definitely work.
There you go. You heard it here first on the podcast, everybody. I came up with an idea and it could potentially be good. And there is a first time for everything. Jess, before we wrap up today's podcast, if people want to find you, presumably you guys, given the very nature of the sort of the industry that you're working in, you know, you're on social media, they can search for you on any of the platforms and see what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just Weezevent.
Fabulous. And one thing I should ask actually before we wrap up, from a venue point of view, we've referenced festivals, you know, and temporary events, but is this technology, are you working from a ticketing point of view and a closed loop sort of cashless payment? Are you working with venues as well, music venues, things like that, on, you know, them deploying this on a, you know, day-to-day and a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, so we work with venues more on an open loop basis. So our devices can be used also with a bank card, like a credit or a debit card. And so often with venues, we'll use both, and we'll have the option to pay with a normal bank card or debit card, or artists' credit can be put onto a NFC card. And then that also gives the added value of having memberships. So people that come to the venue a lot, you know, your loyal fans, they could get a membership card. And that can be used for their access control to the venue, but also to pay. And that could give them like discounted drinks, or, you know, it's a really good way of building a community for a venue.
Excellent. No, thank you for answering that, because I know that venues, a lot of venues, particularly smaller to medium sized venues, they're struggling at the moment, and there's always a lot of coverage about small music venues, and campaigns to keep these venues alive. We know how many are closing, on a monthly and a yearly basis, and I genuinely think that the sort of the technology platforms that are out there, if we can educate some of those venues into how much more efficient it could make their processes, from a cost saving point of view, from a staffing point of view, all the stuff that we've referenced today that's relevant to a festival could be relevant, I think, to a lot of venues, and helping them understand what is out there, and how they could maybe save a few pennies, ultimately could go a long way to helping venues.
100%. All of this data analysis that we now have is almost more important to those small and medium organizations, venues, festivals, anybody that, it's more important to those. And, maybe it's even more easier to implement for the smaller ones that don't have the problems with like structural organization of data that the bigger festivals that have lots of different events have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. We've been talking today on the Event Industry News podcast with Jess Gould from Weezevent. If you want to find out a bit more about what those guys do, take a look through some of their other case studies and the work that they're up to at the moment and in the past. Indeed, Weezevent.com is the website to go to. And as Jess said, search for them on all the social media platforms and you'll find what they're up to. Before we wrap up today's episode, just a couple of little mentions for stuff that's happening with eventindustrynews.com. If you've started your journey today by listening to the podcast on your podcast audio platform, please do make sure that you visit eventindustrynews.com, take a look at the special news, features, supplements, all the good stuff that's going off on the website, as well as the supplier directory. If you work in the events industry and you're looking for a product, service, or supplier, the chances are you will find it within that extensive supplier directory over on eventindustrynews.com, where you can also watch video versions of all of our podcasts. Of course, you may have started your journey there today, and if you have, thank you very much for doing so and for watching today's podcast. But please do make sure that you search for the podcast wherever you get your audio podcast from. That could be Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and make sure that you like and subscribe so that you get the latest episodes when they drop each week. Thanks very much once again to my guest Jess Gould from Weezevent. It's been a pleasure talking, and we'll see you on the next edition of the Event Industry News podcast. Goodbye, everybody.